Okay, so here's another little review that we made up for the first pre-cal test of the year. So I'm going to work kind of quickly through this. Hopefully you've already tried as much as you can, okay? So let's just jump right up to good old-fashioned number 1 here, okay? All right, you've got a piecewise function. There's 3 different equations, and the domain restriction back here is the most important part, okay? And the reason for that is because these equations only exist if the thing behind them is true. So what you'll have to do on these is if it says like the first one, f of -5, well, that means I want the y value when x is -5. So which of these 3 equations do you plug the -5 into? It is certainly not all of them, okay? You only plug it into the one that -5 fits the restriction for. So back here at the back, is -5 less than -3? And so I would say, why, yes it is. So that one works, which means that -5 is not between -3 and 0, and -5 is not greater than 0. So only the top equation. So then you're just going to plug it into -5 plus 5, and you're going to do that math. So I don't know if you can see this. Let me change to black. That might be a little bit better. And then absolute value of -5 plus 5 would just be 10, okay? All right, so f of -3, so which of those equations does that fit into? Well, you can't use the first because -3 is not less than -3, okay? It's the same thing, right? So it fits into this middle one. So -3 is less than or equal to -3, which is less than or equal to 0. So this one fits in the middle equation. So you're going to plug that -3 into the middle equation. So actually, let me do that over here. So -3 squared plus 1. Now this is a little weird. Be careful with that negative. The negative is not included with the exponent. So you'll want to do 3 squared first. So 3 times 3 is 9. Then put the negative on that 9. Then plus 1 and you'll get -8. Okay, so that's the second one that's over here. I'm going to switch to doing the math over here, guys, because it's easier to see. Okay, the next one is this one, f of -1. So -1, if you read all of these criteria, it also fits in the middle one. Plus 1 equals -8. I did the same thing right there. Okay, so once you take it and you plug it into that middle one, we're doing -1 times -1 is +1. Then we put the negative that's out here on it. And on this one, I'm getting a 0, okay? And then f of 0, so is f of 0 to 0 fit into the middle equation, or does it fit into the last one? Well, once again, be careful. 0 is not less than 0. It's less than or equal to 0. So this one also has to be plugged into that middle equation. So you'll get a 1 there. And then the 1/2. 1/2, if you read these 3 criteria, 1/2 is definitely bigger than 0. So you need to use the last one. So 3 times 1/2 minus 4. So 3 times 1/2 is 3/2 minus 4. And then you'll want to get a common denominator. So put this over 1. The common denominator is 2, which means I just multiplied the denominator by 2, so I need to multiply the numerator by 2. So 3 minus 8 is -5 over 2. And that would be the answer to the last one right here. Okay? All right, cool. So there's number 1. Number 2, what is the symmetry for the following? And then is it even or odd? Okay, so I'm going to show you my shortcut way that we talked about in tutorials here. I just look for the exponents and whether or not every exponent is even or odd, right? So when I look at this one, okay, this one definitely has an even exponent. Now the number 4, it does have an x term behind it. Remember, there's an invisible x to the 0 behind it. Always, if you don't see a number, you could write in your own x to the 0th power. Because remember, x to the 0 is just 1, and that's why you don't see it. Okay, is 0 even or odd? Okay, well that's even. Even, okay. So both of those are even exponents, so this is definitely going to be an even function, okay? And then it says, what's the symmetry for it? Well, if you've memorized that even is y-axis symmetry, then you're done. You just memorized it and then you move on. If you hadn't memorized it, then you need to envision the graph of x squared minus 4, which is a parabola that's been shifted down 4 units. And then once you look at that, you could tell from the picture, oh, that has y-axis symmetry, because if I fold the graph, it's going to match on top of itself. Okay, so that's how you would do that. All right, number 2. This one is x to the third. This is an x to the first. So far we have odd exponent, but here's a number, and remember behind that number there is an x to the 0. This is even. And if you are mixing even and odd exponents, what's the answer? The answer is a big fat neither. And so it's not, there's no kind of even or odd, which means there's no symmetry. So I'm going to put none, neither, none. Okay, cool. So number 3, find the slope, distance, and midpoint for the following. Okay, so on that one, I just gave you 2 points. Okay, now I know it's not written as a point, but this first one could definitely be written as the point 1, 3, and the second one could be written as the point 5, -4, okay, because that's just the x and the whole thing is the y. Okay, so just 2 coordinates. All right, so the slope, you just do y minus y over x minus x, and I'm getting 7 over -4, or -4/7. I'm sorry, -7/4. Okay, so there's slope. I'll put an M for slope. It also wants the distance formula. Okay. So some people remember the distance formula, some don't. I think I've told y'all before, I actually just imagine a graph. The point 1, 3 is here, and the point 5, -4, is down here, and I just draw a right triangle out of my picture, and then I use Pythagorean theorem, okay? Because this is a distance of from 3 to -4. That's a distance of 7. This was going from a 1 to a 5, so that's a distance of 4. So then I just do 7 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, and that's how I do the distance formula. So 49 plus 16, and that would be a 5. What would that be? 65. So the square root of 65 would be the length from those 2 points, or the distance between those 2 points. And then if I want the midpoint formula, the midpoint is just finding where on this line that I drew, where is the exact middle, you know, where is the middle going to be? And to do that, you just need to average the 2 points that you see. So how do you do an average? You add things up and you divide by 2. So let me add the x's, divide by 2, and then let me add the y's and divide by 2. So I am getting 3, because that's 6 divided by 2, and then on this one I'm getting -1/2. Okay, so there's another little nice quick review for you on number 3. Okay, number 4, write the equation for the line between the points in number 3 above. Well, I already found the slope, and that's definitely needed anytime you want to write an equation of a line. So I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to erase all of this fun over here. Erase, erase. I wish the eraser was a little bit larger, but whatever. All right, so the equation that I use is point slope. I always use point slope. Now your teacher either showed you this for point slope, or they went ahead and moved that y1 to the other side. That's how I do it. I don't like that, so I just move this to the other side, and this is the equation that I use. And then I just plug stuff in, like you plug in your slope, which we already found up here, and then you plug in a point for your x1, y1. It doesn't matter which point. So this is going to be y equals -7/4, and then x minus something plus something. So let me see, let me find a point that I like. I'm going to use this one because they're both positive, and that makes my life easier. So the x is 1, so it goes there, and the y is 3, so it goes there. Yay! So that's pretty much it. Now, if your teacher had said to use slope-intercept form, and they were like, you have to use slope-intercept, all that you have to do, everybody, is just do what we did above, and then distribute, distribute, combine like terms. And once you distribute that, let me show you what that's going to look like. Once you distribute, this is your new equation, and check it out. If you just put these two numbers together with a common denominator, then you will have an mx plus b. So you'll be finished. So keep that in mind. You can always do point slope and turn it into slope intercept if you want. Okay? All right, now let's go and look at, let me look at this one. I think there's a way to look at that one as well. Oh yeah, beautiful. Okay, and I need to rotate this. Sorry, I'm learning how to use my computer as we speak. Okay, rotate 90 degrees. Ooh, we did it. Okay, cool. So let me just erase all my marks from the page before. So we're just going to, in fact, yeah, still trying to erase. So now this is the last page, just a bunch of different stuff to try here. And, yay. I know you're thrilled getting to watch me use the eraser. I guess I could hit pause, but you might miss some awesome something that I do over here. I don't know. Okay, so erasing done. Yay. Oh, thank Jesus. Okay, number 5. So on number 5, you're using this one picture up here, okay? And I've called it f of x, and you're going to answer all of this stuff with this one picture, okay? So on part A, it wants the domain and the range. Well, for domain, guys, you're just looking from the left to the right, and I'm going to use interval notation. So this graph starts at -3, but since that's an open circle, I'm going to use a parenthesis. Okay, comma. Now as I keep going across, okay, there's an x, there's an x, there's an x. Okay, even though this stops, okay, it still picks up immediately right here. So all of these x's still exist. And then I see an arrowhead. So what does an arrowhead mean? Well, it means eventually it's going to go all the way out to infinity. And that is how you do domain. Range, you want to do your y values, and you want to go least to greatest. So when I read this picture, I'm actually going to go bottom to top. So what is the lowest y on the paper? Well, you may be tempted to look over here again, but be careful, guys, because there was an arrowhead over here. So the lowest number on the picture is really low because that's going to keep going down. So in fact, it actually starts at -infinity, and then I look up and I see what my highest y is. And so as you look up, it's going to be about right there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on this 4, I'm going to put a bracket because it's a solid line, which means you land on it. So solid dots and solid lines, you do land on it, you get to use a bracket. Okay. Now B, increasing, decreasing, and constant. On these, you want to use parentheses every single time. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for domain. It's almost like a domain, but we use parentheses on all of them, okay? So where is this graph increasing? Okay, well, it looks like it's increasing there. It's going up from there to there, and even this piece is still going up from there to there. So when I look at this, anything that's highlighted yellow is how I'm going to answer the problem. So that started at -3, and it stopped at the top of that hill, which on the x-axis is 1, 2, 3. Now keep that in mind. You answer using the x values always, okay? Decreasing, if I want to just draw in my picture where this is decreasing, that's going to be decreasing, okay? So what are the x values that go with that? Well, it picks up at 3 where we just were, and then it goes over and down for forever. So positive infinity. And then constant. Constant on a graph, guys, is a horizontal line. I do not see a horizontal line here, so there is no area or none for a constant interval. Okay? All right, part C. Part C, it's f of -2. So what does that mean? That means it wants the y value. When x is -2, what's the y value? So when x is -2, the y value looks to be -1. Part D, f of 1. f of 1 is saying what's the y value when x is 1. So if I look at my picture when x is 1, okay, this is what's happening, right? It's that big jump in the graph. So which one of those is the y value? Do you think it's 1 or do you think it's 2? It's not both of them, okay? It's only one. The one that is the answer is the one with the solid point, okay? Because if it's solid, you can land on it and you can exist there. So 1 would be the answer. The open circle is not the answer. All right, for pre-AP only, part E says to sketch 2 f of x. So this is a dilation, and I am dilating this vertically, which means that the y values get doubled. That is literally what this is saying, 2 times y, so the y values get doubled. So when I go to graph that, I'm going to do it in a bright color. Let me use that pink again over here. Actually, let me use green. That'll be pretty. Okay, so I'm going to go to every y value and double it. So here the y value was 2, so now it needs to be 4. And I'll draw an open circle. Here the y value was 1, so it needs to be 2. So I'll draw a solid circle, and then I'll just play connect the dots. Whee! Oops. Hold on. Let me undo that. Dang it. I can't undo my line. Oh well, I'll just try to make it darker. There we go. Okay, it should go through the axis still. Okay. All right, and then what else? Now the top of this hill was at 1, 2, 3, 4. It now needs to be at 8. Well, that's going to be off the paper for me, guys, but you do want to move this dot at 4 all the way up here to 8. And then you want to move, well, that's pretty much it. This is still going to cross there. So it's just going to be like, it's going to look like this now. Whee! Okay, so you're doubling everything on it. So hopefully you guys got that if you were doing a vertical dilation. Okay, part F, what is the relative max? Okay, that means for the normal graph, not the new green one. Okay, so for part F, you just go back to this black graph that was given. And what's the max? Well, look, the max is just the highest value, which was here, which is a 4. So on these kinds of questions, you do want to answer, you have 2 options. Either you could say the max is 4, okay, or if it said, or you could say the max is when x is equal to 3. Okay, I usually just read the directions. The teacher will say, give me the x value where it happens, and if so, you'll give them that. Or if they just say, give me the max, just give them the y. Okay? All right, cool. Now, number 6 is involving something called the greatest integer function, and I know that because of that funky bracket that's on the problem. And if your teacher didn't teach you much about this and just said do it in the calculator, well, that's fine. But all that it means is to round down. It means plug in a number and round down, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these by hand without a calculator, okay? Number 6, I'm supposed to find f of 3.7 given whatever it gave me, and it was 2 greatest integer of x minus 1 and then plus something. Do y'all know what that something is? Because I don't. Let me look at my paper. It looks like it was a 5. So pretty much you just plug that in, just like we normally do. 3.7 plus 1 plus 5. And then just what is, 3.7 plus 4 is 4.7, right? But now you don't multiply these yet. I know you're tempted, but don't do it yet. Now is when you do the rounding, okay? So if this is the round down function, then 4.7 is going to round into a 4. It rounds down to the whole number 4. And so 8 plus 5 is 13, and that would be your answer, okay? All right. Oh, cool. And then it gave me another one. Then it says to do negative 1.1. So you'll be doing the same thing, but you'll be plugging in a negative 1.1 right here. Let's see. That would turn that into a negative 2.1. And then if we round down, that's actually a negative 3, negative. So if you did this one, hopefully you got negative 1. Okay? And if you didn't, go back and do it again. And if you think I did it wrong, send me a text. Okay. And then the last one is find the domain. And I've given you 3 different functions to find the domain for. The reason for that is because when you do domain, there's only 2 that are tricky. Only be concerned if you see a radical or a fraction. But if you don't see a radical or a fraction, domain's pretty easy. Like part A, I don't see a radical or a fraction, so guess what? It's all real numbers. Or you could write that with interval notation, okay? Part B, do I see a radical or fraction? Yes, I do. This is where I need to be careful. The rule on these is if it's a radical, you take what's under the radical and you set it greater than or equal to 0 and you solve. And that is always the rule. Just take that greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to solve this out. I'm going to shut up and do some math. Okay, there's my domain. That's it. The domain is that x is greater than or equal to -7/2. Done. And then on C, if you have a fraction, which is what this is the other area where you have to be careful. If you do that, the rule is to take the denominator and make sure that it's not equal to 0, because what that's going to do is cause a hole or a vertical asymptote on the graph. You'll learn more about that later this year, but that's okay. For now, you just take what it is, which once again it got cut off, but that was a 4x minus 9 down there, and we're going to say it can't equal 0. I'm going to move the 9 over. I'm going to divide off the 4. So there's my domain. X cannot equal 9/4. Okay, hopefully, I know that was longer than I wanted it to be. I told y'all it would be quick, and it was 22 minutes. But hopefully that's a good extra review before you take your test. Maybe you can watch this before going to bed tonight and have sweet math dreams and make 100 tomorrow. All right, guys, good luck. We'll see y'all next week.